Hey y'all, it is Candy Mama here from the Dower Duo. Sheriff is right there. Our interview this week will be an interview with Chit Chat and Dinner Bell from Wandered Together on YouTube. I shot this interview on March 14th, so a lot of things have changed since then. I wanted to post this interview now because I want to show you guys how much this coronavirus has escalated since then. You guys will hear some things that are surprising. The amount of foresight that we have right now, I think there will be some things that will be said that is concerning, but I think it's good to kind of see where we've come from, where we were. I did my last update on the coronavirus on March 16th. So I believe I said the trail is the safest place to be. And I didn't think about, that was before the ATC's guidelines came out and their notice came out. I'm gonna do a quick and dirty on the ATC's guidelines and kind of tell you about that. But from March 16th, it's changed a lot. Today is March 23rd, and a lot of things have changed since then. And now for me, the biggest concern are the vulnerable populations in these small towns, these small mountain towns that through hikers hike through. So that is a big concern. So I will kind of share my thoughts about that. But first, I'm going to show you guys this interview with Dinner Bell and Chit Chat. They are a delight. And just to let you all know, this was March 14th, so it was a different world back then. So just realize that, know that there has been a lot of information that has come out since then. But it's good to see where we've come from, and they have changed some thoughts on this. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this. And after that, we will talk about coronavirus and a little more updates from the Appalachian Trail.
So hello everyone, we are back again. We are here doing another Appalachian Trail interview. Again, I'm at the trailer as the caretaker, and I get the honor of hosting and just meeting some hikers. So, if you guys could start with your names and when you started.
Trail name? Real name?
Both. Whatever discretion, personal discretion.
Alright, so I'm Jolene. Trail name is Chit Chat.
And I'm Thomas. My trail name is Dinner Bell.
And how did you guys get those names? Because instantly, when you guys came up, I was like, I want to know this story.
I don't really know if there's honestly too much of a story to mine. I was chit-chatting with Camper and Screwball, and I guess they thought that I made a lot of conversation, and they leaned over and was like, her name should be Chit Chat. And then they just walked up later and started calling me Chit Chat.
Wow.
And it kind of just stuck, I guess. I don't know.
Mine's got a little more story. So we got pretty lucky. We hit fresh grounds 3 days in a row. So we got him for breakfast one day, lunch the next, and then dinner the next day. And so when we were eating breakfast up there, he was making some soup for lunch, and he said, somebody needs to try the soup, tell me what it needs. And so I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then the next day for lunch, he had some people make some Kool-Aid, and so he's like, well, somebody needs to try the Kool-Aid. Okay, give me some Kool-Aid. And then the third day, for lunch that same day, he made some beef tips. And there was like 5 or 6 of us there, we couldn't finish the beef tips. So I was like, okay, well, I'll take them for dinner.
So, Dinner Bell.
Almost. So then the next
The
day, we got him for dinner. And
a lot of
Yeah.
Our packs were so heavy that week.
Wow.
But we finished eating, went back up to the shelter at Rock Gap, and he came up a little later, and he said, hey guys, somebody just pulled up with 6 pizzas down there. And he said, just kidding. I didn't hear him say that. So it was kind of quiet, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go get some pizza.
Wow.
So that was kind of how I got my name. I was always ready to
Ring the dinner bell and here it goes. Yeah.
Have you guys gotten a lot of trail magic?
Kind of.
I don't want to say no because we
have got a lot actually.
When you consider all the things that are encompassed in trail magic, I would think yes. We've seen Fresh Grounds 4 times. Shiitake and Spruce Lee, who hiked last year,
I know that.
came up to Hiawassee and gave him a IT band brace.
Wow.
We've had one of our YouTube subscribers pay for our hotel stay in Fontana 2 nights. And now we have some people that are offering to host us tomorrow night, slack pack us, and stay at their house tomorrow night, and then again we get to Sam's Gap.
Oh wow.
It's
So,
kind of a lot.
Yeah.
That's
for February,
awesome.
for what people say about February hikers, we've definitely experienced a lot of kindness out here.
Okay.
And we got a beer yesterday for
Yeah, and the lady on the trail had
some
beer in her
ladies.
truck for the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, in March we got a good amount when we started, but then it just like dropped off when we got out of like the Smokies, I would say. It just like completely dropped off,
Yeah.
and all I wanted was trail magic.
Yeah.
It was all through Virginia, like it was just a
Empty.
couple here and there.
Right now we're like, if we see anybody else, bring toilet paper.
How do you feel about this coronavirus and hiking during it? How is that impacting your hike? Or is it not at all?
We did want to stay at Nature's Inn Hostel, and they're closed because of it. So it's
Okay.
starting. I think
Yeah.
it's just starting to impact our hike.
Yeah, honestly, we didn't realize like that this, like we obviously have heard about it and we know what's happening, but we didn't realize how it was affecting the U.S. until we showed up here and walked in our hostel. Caretakers immediately just filled us in on everything that was happening, and then my phone started ringing, and my sister's like, "Did you hear?" And then my best friend's like, "Did you hear?" And then my work friends were like, "Did you hear?" And I'm like, what is happening in the world? Yeah, so
Did that scare y'all to continue, or like make you nervous in any way?
I feel like we're almost safer out there because there's less people out there than there are in the town or anything, and you're coming into contact with the same 10 people. So if none of them are
Yeah, for
sick,
sure.
you're probably not going to get sick. So
and it's almost like, I don't want to say like hard to believe, but it is almost like harder for us to wrap our heads around that that's what's happening, because we don't hear that and see that, and we're not around people that are like
getting sick. or-
getting sick, or like that's not what the conversation is like on the trail. So for us, we're like, that's not as big of a deal as you are making it out to be, because it's not part of our world on the trail.
Right. It's a different world out there. Yeah.
I think maybe in the next couple weeks it might, if it doesn't clear up or something, it might kind of affect it though.
So besides like the sickness, are you guys nervous at all about like restocking, or like getting shuttles in from random people? Does that make you nervous?
Not really.
Because you mentioned toilet paper.
Right, the resupply thing I think is what might affect us in a week or two, because especially if we get to some of the bigger towns, like here they still had everything we needed, but
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
but Screwball's wife was driving up here and she said she stopped at like 3 different stores and all the like napkins were gone, all the toilet paper, all the water.
baby wipes, all the
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving forward, what is the part of the trail that you're looking forward to the most? Because I figure you guys know a little bit about what you're getting yourselves into. What is the part of the trail, or maybe a landmark, that you're looking forward to the most going forward?
I'm really looking forward to the Grayson Highlands.
Okay, the ponies.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to go for a while.
Okay.
We kind of once we decided we were hiking the Appalachian Trail, we kind of avoided all the running points along it.
All the what?
All the different points along the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
And you also really wanted to stay at Over Mountain Shelter,
Yeah.
but it's closed. So that's like something he's really kind of bummed about.
Yeah,
It's like
that was sketchy. We stayed there last year. It was leaning over the mountain. It was,
Rocking it.
yeah, it was a little sketch.
and it's kind of like the same for me, because I was really looking forward to staying at Nature's Inn Hostel.
Sure. Yeah.
And now they're closed because of everything.
Yeah.
So, but like as far as like something to see, I don't know. We haven't gotten very many good views, and I'm out here for like, I love to be on the top and be like, heck yeah, I did that. Check me out.
We get a lot
Nothing for me to
of
see.
big mountains on rain days. Just
Yeah.
fog and
The
clouds.
weather. So we'll talk. One more question. How has the weather impacted your hike? Because there's been a lot of rain, a lot of snow. How has that impacted the hike? Has that been fine for y'all?
We're a little bit wetter.
Yeah, really. Yeah, we haven't had any problems. I mean, there have been weather problems, but us personally, we haven't had any problems because we're comfortable with the gear that we have, and we're comfortable with like the weather, and we use the weather website for the shelters or whatever. So if there's something that looks like something we can't handle, you know, like a thunder lightning storm, then we make the arrangements we need to make to hurry up and get ourselves where we need to go short so that we can be out of it if we have to. But as far as like the snow, I'm pretty sure our group was the only ones out there those few days that there was a lot of snow up there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it hasn't impacted it too much.
Okay.
Maybe a couple more town days or pushing a little bit extra to get somewhere, but
Very cool. So how can we follow you on social media?
we're Wander Out There. It's wander.outthere on Instagram and YouTube.
Okay.
We're doing daily videos on YouTube, and then Instagram is
Periodic updates.
once or twice a week usually.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much.
thank
you. Thanks
Good
for the
luck,
interview.
chit chat, and dinner bell. Cool.
Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Dinner Bell and Chit Chat. Obviously, looking at that video, you can see that their concerns are mostly about themselves. But I think 3 days later, the ATC came out with the guidelines. The thought of vulnerable populations in these mountain towns came out, and a lot of people changed their opinions about the Appalachian Trail being a safe place to be at the moment, because things have come out about you could be a carrier of the coronavirus and not know it. But with that being said, there are a lot of opinions and thoughts spiraling on Appalachian Trail groups on Facebook, comment sections on YouTube and Instagram. I have been keeping eyes on those, and our community was before the coronavirus was very united, I would say, in a lot of regards, except for if you should be ultralight or not ultralight, whatever. But now it seems there is a huge divide, and people are arguing a lot more. People are berating hikers who are deciding to stay on the Appalachian Trail and continue their through hike. People who are continuing their through hike are standing up for themselves and being very harsh and rude themselves. So everyone's just there's a lot of high tension. This is a high tension situation, and it's sad to see there's so much disconnect between our community. Seeing that is really disheartening, and I feel like I should say something about that, because our community was so united, like I said before, in the fact that there's a lot of mean words going around on these groups, on comment sections. In my opinion, that is not really how you get a point across. And what I think is having a conversation with somebody and talking to them about the situation and understanding where each other comes from, because that's important. It's important to understand why thru hikers are continuing on the Appalachian Trail. It's important to understand where they're coming from, what they're doing to reduce their impact on these communities. A lot of people who are on the Appalachian Trail are saying that those people are selfish, and in some regard that could be true, but also I know hikers that are doing larger restocks and they're not going to towns. I just had a girl go through, and her husband is going to be at Gaps and restocking her, so she will never have to go into town. So the fact that people are just right off the bat writing them off and just being rude, you don't know their situation. You don't know that they sold their home, they sold their car, they sold their home, so they don't have anywhere to go back to. The fact that people aren't understanding that, I just feel like coming to an even playing ground and trying to have a conversation is better and more constructive than arguments and harsh, mean comments. So just wanted to say that before I go any further. Now I'm going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to go over the quick and dirty ATC guidelines that came out a couple days ago. And these guidelines that came out from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy really made a lot of thru hikers decisions for them. So I'm going to go over the ATC guidelines in a really quick way. I'm also going to talk about some questions from commenters on our videos. I have 2 questions. How was coronavirus influenced thru hikers and their communities? And also I'm going to talk about, I'm also going to address what should hikers be aware of if they don't come off trail and how it may affect them. I'm also going to talk about on that, just some small things to note about our bunkhouse, the Appalachian Trail-er. That is literally right here. I'm literally looking at the Appalachian Trail right now in Hot Springs. I'm gonna talk a little bit about our bunkhouse and how that is operating in this age of coronavirus. And also, lastly, I'm gonna talk about my own opinion on the coronavirus and through hiking. So like I said, this is March 23rd. New developments are coming out every day. So just keep in mind when I am saying this, I tried to wait for the morning to kind of pass before I move on. That's our washer right now. It's on sanitize mode and that's it, working really hard. So I'm gonna give that a second. So like I said, these are guidelines from the ATC. I was waiting for the morning to kind of pass if there's any more developments I wanted to include in this video. However, I have not seen any, so I'm just gonna go ahead and post this video about afternoon time. It's around 1 o'clock now on March 23rd. So the quick and dirty ATC guidelines that I'm gonna go over. There is a statement that they put in bold right before you read their guidelines. So I'm gonna say that. This is directly from the ATC's website. So if you want to check that out, go to AppalachianTrailConservancy.com. So they said in bold, we at the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, ATC, are now asking you to do the same. Please postpone your section or through hike. Instead, consider an alternate way of connecting to the trail into the outdoors, end quote. So that was the first thing that they said before that was one of the first things they said before they went on to this next part. This next part is them saying, if you do continue to through hike, these are things you have to realize. My washer is going crazy right now. Hold on. Okay, my washer calmed down a little bit. Now it's just being loud. Anyway, so I'm just gonna keep going. So they made that statement very clear that they thought people should consider postponing their section or through hike. But they said if you do go ahead and continue, these are some things you should know. So they're saying that your starting point should not be at the southern end of the trail. Those are common starting points, and that makes it difficult to distance yourself between people. And large amounts of people start on March, in between March and April, in those months, and shelters and campsites might be very busy. So consider not starting at Amicula or Springer Mountain. Your finances, they talk about your finances. They say if you do show some symptoms of the COVID-19, you should self-quarantine and be approved by a medical professional before you go any further. Meaning you're going to have to get shuttles. You're gonna have to go to the doctor, or you're gonna have to go to hostels or hotels that are secluded. Meaning you're gonna have to pay a little more to do those things. There will be reduced support options. They mean that in the way that a lot of hostels are shutting down. Hotels, I'm not quite sure, but I think the one here in town is closed. The gear shop here in Hot Springs, for example, is closed as well. And restaurants are not closing down completely, but they are doing takeout, which is a little tougher for hikers to get access to. There might be a reduced inventory at grocery stores and restock points. There will be not as many ridge runners or caretakers. Here's Jonathan. So with that being said, really quick note, Jonathan's job training got postponed. So you might be seeing more of him now that we said that little update that you won't be, but now that his job training got postponed, you're gonna be seeing him like that.
Yep.
All right, so reduced support options. So you're just gonna see less support from trail angels, from caretakers, from outfitters, a lot less support options in that regard. So keep that in mind. And we'll talk about our bunkhouse, and I'll talk about Hot Springs. That is what I know right now. I'm not sure. I don't want to spread any rumors about any other hostel or bunkhouse or gear shop, but I do know here in Hot Springs, I know the case. So I'm going to talk about that later, not right now. But that's what the ATC said. You're going to have reduced support options. Also, they said consider shelter. That is another point they made. You should have be doing a lot more camping, and you should avoid using privies with that. So you should avoid using privies, so dig a cat hole more than 200 feet away from a water source and camping area. With that being said, Maryland and New Jersey closed shelters along the Appalachian Trail until at least May. And also, with that also being said, Damascus has decided to cancel trail days. They have that every May, and it's been that way for 35 years, but because of this, they have decided to cancel. So I thought I would just add that in there. So vulnerable, the next point, the second to last point, which is one that I'm the most concerned about, is the vulnerable AT communities that have limited healthcare options. So this is an important part of the AT is getting off town and restocking in these small mountain towns and to stay in hostels. So what they specifically said is, quote, many communities along the trail are likely low on resources and may have overburdened healthcare systems. Carrying COVID-19 from the trail, with that being said, end quote, you could be the carrier of the virus and not know it. So continue from there. Carrying COVID-19 from the trail into these communities or vice versa puts their healthcare systems, their healthcare workers, and the very communities that serve the trail at risk. Some communities do not have healthcare options at all, end quote. So if you go to restock, that could be very, so if you go into towns and you're carrying the virus, that could be very bad if that spreads around a small mountain community such as Hot Springs. So that is my biggest concern that hikers need to be watching out for. I will go over my opinion about that, but just keep in mind that you could be carrying it and you could infect vulnerable populations, older people, people who don't have good health care. So keep that in mind. The last point is that spreading the virus. Quote, the Appalachian Trail is not an easy place to isolate yourself. Staying in hostels, shopping at local grocery stores, eating in local restaurants, drinking beer in local bars, or the temptation to huddle with others in a shelter at a cold and rainy night when your gear is wet are all chances to contract or spread COVID-19. Okay, so you won't get this year, 2020, you won't get the common Appalachian Trail experience because there is so many hostels closing down, and there's a lot more things to note. You won't get a lot of support, but it's important to keep in mind that you need to be sure that you're not spreading this virus in any way. It's not an easy place to isolate, like they said. You could be spreading it. And there's my washer going again, and my camera is going crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to a question I got on a comment section. How has coronavirus influenced Thru hikers and the communities? Oh, I'm just gonna hold it. So, what I just wrote down is it has reduced the number of Thru hikers drastically. When I first came here, I saw about 20 at least walking. I mean, the Appalachian Trail is right here. I at least saw 20 walking by up to Laughing Heart a day. It has drastically reduced the numbers of Thru hikers. Thru hikers have postponed for when this clears, or they're deciding to do a hike for next year. Nahamsha, she was here at our hostel or our bunkhouse and decided to go home. So that's when we took her to the airport in Asheville, and she postponed for next year, 2021. The community and businesses that make most of their money off the Thru hiker population will struggle. But with that being said, without hikers, they will have less opportunities to catch the virus, which is a good thing. But keep in mind, small businesses all over are being affected by the virus. So if you have a chance to shop locally or eat locally, do that without spreading the virus. That's just a common point. It's a tough situation. Nobody wins, but it is responsible to stay away from towns. Another question I got, so those were just quick points about that question, and I can kind of add on those, but I think you guys can kind of think about those yourselves and use discretion and brainstorming skills. I know you guys have them. What should hikers be aware of if they don't come off trail, and how will it affect them? So something I just wrote down really quickly is they should be aware of the possible impact that they're making by going into town to restock or stay the night in a town. You could be transmitting the virus to vulnerable populations. Like I said, that is my biggest concern. You could run out of resources such as hostels or places to restock. Again, that is all in the ATC's guidelines, something I already mentioned. And you might not enjoy your hike as much. I've heard my fair share of hikers ranting about this coronavirus and worrying about the next couple months. So when you should be worrying about your hike and your health, you will be worrying about the coronavirus. And honestly, you'll be worrying about what other people think. Even though a lot of people say, I don't care what people think. But especially if you are on social media, there are, like I said before, there are a lot of people that are just being so rude in comments. So you'll probably get a lot of pushback about your decision to stay on. So you might not enjoy your hike as well. Also, it's very worrisome to think that you're being selfish going into towns. So honestly, you might not enjoy your hike as much as you would in another year where the coronavirus wasn't a thing. About our bunkhouse, the Appalachian Trail-er, we are continuing to stay open, but we are only accepting 8 hikers at a time to just reduce the numbers of people. We asked them before they come if they had any symptoms. If they have any symptoms in the next 2 weeks, to contact us, because at that point we would shut down. So it's kind of an understanding, if you do have symptoms, you should tell the places you've been that you have the coronavirus so we can shut down and sanitize. I tell people to stay here in the bunkhouse. All of the hostels have closed in Hot Springs. Laughing Heart has closed. Elmer's has closed. And this is the only place for hikers to go at the moment if they're not going to some other like Airbnbs or whatever. This is one of the only places to do laundry. So hikers have one resource, and that is here, the bunkhouse. They have restock options. The gear shop has closed. So really we have a small restock. We have a place for hikers to stay. But the trail goes right through Hot Springs. So there are a number of hikers that are still going on the Appalachian Trail, and they're not gonna stop no matter what. So if I can have a place where they can all convene and quarantine themselves without them walking around town and possibly infecting other people or the population in Hot Springs, I would rather that, and I would rather them quarantine themselves here. I tell them, get your things and stay here and bunker down in our bunks. We don't want them to be spreading any possible viruses at all. With that being said, you could make an argument that it would spread easily here. However, we are sanitizing 3 times a day. We are being very vigilant. We are being very vigilant. We're being vigilant. We're being very vigilant in cleaning and sanitizing. I clean, use my bleach water on every hard surface, even on the beds. I sanitize those completely. But I'd rather, hikers are still going to come, and if they have nowhere to go, they're just going to be wandering the streets. So I'd rather them quarantine themselves here and stay out of town. So obviously that can change, but right now we are open and helping the thru hikers in any way we can. My opinion on the whole thing is I don't try to insert my opinion in any thru hikers' decision. If they ask me my opinion, I tell them, but I'm not going to just insert it without them wondering. But my opinion is I think they should get off. I think the Appalachian Trail could be easy for thru hikers to spread this virus. We all know how norovirus spreads, and it's very easy for it to go through trail families and hikers. So the fact that the coronavirus is so easily spreadable, that is not great, especially if you're going into towns. My biggest concern are the older populations, the people that don't have health care. That is a big concern of mine. So I feel like hikers should get off the trail. Then again, I am kind of enabling them by staying open. But we are trying to quarantine them as much as we can here in Hot Springs because the town is literally the trail. So my opinion is they should get off and quarantine themselves. But obviously I'm not going to insert my opinion in their decisions. But what can be done? If a thru hiker wants to continue, what can they do? There are options for them. They can decide to keep hiking and quarantine themselves on trail, because the trail is safe as long as you're not around people, as long as you're keeping 6 feet, distance of 6 feet, as long as you're tenting, and as long as you're not going into towns. How can you go into towns? You could have a loved one who's currently working from home or not working at all follow you along and help you restock from there. You could, if this is an option for people, you could get your car and go home every so often and essentially do sections of the trail. Not quite a thru hike, but it is sections of the trail. So go home, restock, take a shower, come home. Obviously that is for East Coast people, not very accessible for anyone on the West Coast. But those are my opinions. There are ways to continue through hiking without going through towns, but I just hope people are being vigilant about that and really critically thinking about those options. Again, it is a hard decision, nobody wins, but we are a community that should stand strong together and try to have conversations instead of arguments. It's really disheartening to see that. But I think that's all for right now. Again, it is March 23rd at 1 o'clock. Everything might change. I will have New Hampshire, Frosty, I have an interview with Screwball that I need to post, and then 2 Mike's Hikes. I have interviews with all of them that I'm excited to show you guys, and I will continue to be doing these coronavirus updates until we really start kind of getting a better understanding. But this is straight from the Appalachian Trail. It's right here. So I hope I was some help to y'all. If not, don't comment mean. You guys, some of y'all are just so mean. There's a guy who commented, shout out to him. It actually made me laugh really hard, but he was like, you got some in your nose. Oh, look at that, I do. But that made me laugh. But some of y'all are actually mean. But I did like that comment, whoever you are. That was funny. Jonathan liked it too, didn't you? He didn't hear me, he has headphones in. Whatever. All right, this is a long video. Bye.